What I hold in my hands may quite possibly be the most valuable precious material in all of the galaxies. It is worth billions of dollars. Don't believe me? Every time I have it in my possession, the shape-shifting lizard people of the deep state flock to my house to try to get their grimy little hands on my red gold.
Get the hell out of here.
This is the centerpiece of a perfectly ripe watermelon, meticulously dissected away from the rest so that all that remains is the sweet, flawless, seed-free center. Look, I don't want to brag, but according to my calculations, I might be the best watermelon picker-outer the world has ever known. A piece of completely seed-free watermelon might be my favorite food on the planet, and seeing as how we're entering watermelon season now, I'm going to share with you two things. Number one, my strategy to pick out the perfect watermelon every single time. Number two, how to cut it hedonistic style. So let's do it. My adventure begins at the home of the best watermelons in all of Austin, Central Market. I haven't picked out a bad watermelon since before the towers fell. My method is locked in. I've got 5 main tests for a watermelon to pass when it comes to picking out a good one. As I approach the bounty of melons, I begin with test number 1, the type test. There are a few different kinds of watermelons you'll see in the stores, and your decision should be easy. Go straight to the bin with the seeded watermelons. These are by far and away your best choice. There's likely a bin of seedless watermelons right next to it, and you're going to pass that right on by because seedless watermelon is a joke and it makes me blood red mad. How you can call something seedless when it still has hundreds of seeds is beyond me and deserves to get whoever named it thrown into a federal prison. Here's the deal. I don't eat any seeds, white or black. They're a disgrace, and if I accidentally bite down on one, it makes me want to throw up everywhere. Hence why I'm about to teach you the magic of cutting hedonistic style. I'll cut away every last seed until all that remains is true luxury. One benefit of seeded watermelons is they tend to always be oblong in shape over spherical, which I say is preferable. Everybody knows that the best part of the watermelon is the middle because it's totally seed-free and the sweetest part. You know which watermelons have the greatest amount of middle real estate? The oblong ones. You can obviously not give any time to the horseshit mini ones either, they suck. Once I find my bin of seeded watermelons, I move on to test number 2, the classic knock test. A good watermelon will sing to you after a hearty knock. You're listening for a deep, hollow sound that holds a little bit of reverb. Really what I'm looking for is a sound that tickles my brain because it just sounds right. You know what I mean, you rip into that sucker and it hits 432 Hz and you appease the high spirits. That's when you know. You should almost feel the sound travel through the watermelon and out the opposite side. It almost holds the sound after the knock. Here's what a good one sounds like. If you knock on it and the sound is flat and dull where it just doesn't have any reverb or cool feeling in your ear, that watermelon is probably either underripe or overripe and mushy. This is what I would consider a failed knock test to sound like. And now so you can directly compare, we have good on the left and not so good on the right. You can tell that this watermelon on the right has a duller sound with less reverb. I'll start out with the knock test first because it's the easiest to perform before you go swimming around in all the bins. Once I find a couple that pass the knock test, I'll move on to test number 3, the weight test. A good watermelon will be heavy for its size. I'll take all my melons that pass the knock test and I'll go back, pick them up, and toss them around for a bit. I'm trying to get a good read on if they're playing games or not. Sometimes you'll pick one up and you won't believe how heavy it is. Those ones are almost always going to be awesome in my experience. As a watermelon ripens, it develops more sugars and juices, increasing its density and weight. If you were to compare 2 watermelons of the same size, the heavier one is likely to be riper and juicier. I place the most gravity on my watermelon selection on the weight test. If I find a melon that feels like it may be made out of uranium, I'll be more forgiving with some of the other tests because I'm confident it will be good based on its density. I've got 2 watermelons to compare in this video. The left one is 36.2 pounds and the right is 45.4 pounds. These are some big boys. Test number 4, the field spot test. I try and find a watermelon with a big field spot that is a creamy yellow or even light orange color. This can be a decent indicator that the watermelon has had time to ripen. Some people will tell you this is the most important factor to consider when picking out a good watermelon. If you ask me, it's further down on my list of priorities. The test isn't as foolproof as some of the others. You can find a good watermelon with little to nothing for a field spot, and you can find bad ones with huge field spots. However, more often than not, it's a sign of a good watermelon and something to be considered. The field spot's the area of the watermelon that rested on the ground while it was growing. It's where the watermelon was in contact with the soil and did not receive any sunlight. This watermelon I found had one of the biggest and darkest field spots of the bunch, but it horrifically failed the knock test. So I snatched it to compare against a higher scoring melon to see if it stands up. Test number 5 is the webbing test. As I'm searching through the pile of watermelons, I keep an eye out for ones with lots of brown, woody looking spots. These spots are called webbing. Supposedly they occur due to bee pollination, where bees leave tiny scars on the fruit as they pollinate the flowers. This webbing is a good indicator of sweetness, as well-pollinated watermelons tend to have a higher sugar content. I say supposedly because some people on Google think that's horseshit and that's not actually what causes the webbing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm no agronomist, so I can't confirm or deny. I just know that when I find watermelons that have a good amount of webbing, usually they taste pretty good. So to recap, how I pick out good watermelons. 1. The type test, seeded over seedless. 2. The knock test, a hollow sound with some reverb is what you want. 3. The weight test, a watermelon that is heavy for its size is more likely to be sweet and juicy. 4. The field spot test, a creamy yellow field spot can mean that the watermelon had time to ripen on the vine in the field. And 5. The webbing test. Webbing can indicate a well-pollinated plant, which means it can be sweeter. If I had to order the importance of these tests to help me pick out a perfect watermelon, I would go weight, knock, type, and then field spot and webbing tied for 4th and 5th. Now after you've selected your perfect beast of a watermelon, we must get into the magic of cutting hedonistic style. This is a secret the government doesn't want you to know. You will hold the balance of the world's power within your hands when you extract the middle portion of your watermelon. I swear to God, every time I've ever done this, the lizard people flock to my house to try to break down my door. And it's because what I have in my possession is so valuable and the global elites know that I have too much power. And you will never convince me that the lizards showing up is just a mere coincidence. Okay, here we go. How to cut hedonistic style. I have picked out the best watermelon Central Market had to offer, and I am ready to reach nirvana. The first step to cutting hedonistic style is to rinse off and wash your watermelon. There could be doo-doo on it, and while for some of you eating doo-doo is your definition of hedonism, for me, I think I'm gonna pass. Before you get into knifing your watermelon, you must have an understanding of the seed pathways in order to accurately cut hedonistic style. The seeds in a seeded watermelon tend to grow in an arc shape down the length, leaving a football-shaped section of pristine, seed-free magic in the center. This piece, when perfectly extracted, is worth billions of dollars, making me at this moment a multi-billionaire. Now the goal is to make your cuts at the spots that preserve the most amount of middle real estate as possible. It's going to be very hard to cut out the football shape because that requires extreme finesse, so a standard rectangular prism will suffice. When I have a gigantic watermelon like this one, I like to start by making superficial slices to act as guidelines for my real cuts. I have found that the best way to maximize your hedonistic piece is to find the vine end and the butt end and make your first cuts around 1/3 of the way between that point and the outer edge. Once I have my guideline placed, I can hack away at it while still trying to maintain long, clean cuts until the edge piece becomes free. This first cut's the hardest one you'll have to make because you're doing it completely blind. Once you have the watermelon opened up, you can see where the seed line is and you'll be able to make your next cut based on where those lie. Keep in mind that when you get close to the ends, the seeds come closer to the center because of the arced shape, so don't go too wide with your next cut or else you'll get seeds that are too deep to pick out and your billion-dollar piece becomes hog slop with those disgusting impurities inside. Keep working your way around that center piece, and 4 cuts later, you will have freed the center from the rest. You may have some seeds toward the ends that need to be plucked off, but once that is complete, you have your own luxurious center and know what it feels like in that moment to hold immense power and prestige in your hands. Congratulations, you now have a billion-dollar asset. If you are able to pick out a perfectly ripe, juicy, and sweet watermelon, this piece you are about to consume is going to be an eating experience that will change your life. Take it outside in the sun, and indulge in the deluxe, lavish perfection that it is. I'm telling you, it is so powerful, it will imprint on your brain and be something you remember and crave until the end of time. It's the ideal bite over and over and over again. Crisp, sweet, juicy, refreshing, and most importantly, no seeds to bite down on and ruin perfection. Look, I'll admit the preparation of the remaining watermelon to free it from the seeds is extremely tedious and time consuming, but that's the price I'm willing to pay for hedonism. It requires lots of patience, but if you cut directly on the seed lines or even break the melon apart with your hands, the fault lines created will be where the seeds are and they are quite easy to scrape away with the back of a knife. As for the other watermelon I bought to test out because it had that huge field spot, it was overripe as I suspected from the failed knock test. The center was still impeccable and I enjoyed every last bite, but the flesh surrounding the seeds was mushy and not worth eating. This is more evidence to me that the knock test should be more heavily weighted than the field spot test when choosing a good watermelon. So next time you're at the store and you decide you want to become a billionaire yourself, head over to the watermelon section and use this information to pick out a good one. If you guys have any good tips or tricks that you use when you pick out a watermelon, drop them in the comments below so that we can fine-tune this strategy. Okay, bye.